I mean, you had a point in 2023. I don't think you've talked about it a lot recently, but like the business was scaling fast. Like you guys were doing some big numbers rather quickly. Um,
Yeah. Oh my
and
God.
and there's a lot of, I'm of the belief that business is one of the best forms of self-development because it just, dude, it's a it's a stressful process, and
Yeah.
there's a lot you learn about yourself and your ability to do a whole bunch of things. So what have you kind of learned from all that process of just, scaling a business and finally, making money and being someone that's able to do that?
Um, well, there's so many things I could talk about right now. I'll say this. So last May was like the peak of my identity before it really started like dying, right? Because at the end of the day, I see business as just a reflection of me. Um, that's all it is. It's a representation of us, just like an arm, right? If I'm sick internally, my arm's gonna get sick or whatever. Like you can think of it that way. And so last May was the highest month that we had ever had, but I was at like peak level of ego and striving. And I was just in this pure Alexander the Great mindset, bro. But I was like trying to do it all alone from the top. I hadn't yet brought my business partner on full time. And so, in that place, I was very much just like, on the surface, it looks like success, but I was dying inside. And it's because one, I wasn't rooted in my true identity. So there was not this sense of presence. It was just constant, like, what's next? What's next? What's next? And I felt this like deep unworthiness. It was a deep unworthiness wound. And that's what most dudes, women too, but guys especially, as entrepreneurs, is the wound is a deep unworthiness of being able to receive love and be present. Like thinking you have to do something to earn love, right? And learn and love in the sense of not just relationships, but abundance. Like being able to receive something without feeling like you're going to self-sabotage it or self-sabotaging it like unconsciously, pushing it away because you're like, I don't know, I don't trust it. And so there's just so many things we can do because of this internal narrative that we've told ourselves. And for me, it was a deep unworthiness wound. I didn't feel that I had experienced God type of love my entire life basically. I grew up with an entrepreneurial father, and so it's like as a kid when he was working all the time and not really present, he was a great dad. But it's like as a kid, we tell ourselves these stories about reality. For me, it was like, oh, he's not present, and so it's like I feel emotionally distant. And then, I can only get love and attention if I do something good. And it's like, oh, as soon as I do something, I have to get to the next level. Like now is not good enough. And so I was literally acting that out my entire life, especially in the spiritual paths I was walking. Hermeticism, I was worshiping these like and these are all legit, like principles and universal laws. They all work, but it's like I was worshiping the laws and like what to do rather than who they came from. Right. And so because I was not connected to myself and my core identity, I was not able to connect with God. And so I was literally pushing him away, and I only wanted a relationship with him for the benefits of what came with that. And right now I'm writing a book, right? This is my favorite project I've ever written because it's like, it feels like it's coming from me and flowing from me instead of something I'm trying to go get. And
Hmm.
that's the difference. Um, but yeah, with that relationship, it's like God is hunting us down our entire life to be like, yo, I'm here for you. I'm here for you. But we push that away because we live in this world where we focus more on what we can see rather than what we cannot see. And so we get caught up in these external events and they tell us a story about ourselves that we internalize. And so, yeah, like in the business side of things, I was doing that a lot, but I had no freaking peace. No peace. The business internally was chaotic, even though on the surface it looked good, right? Which was literally just a reflection of me. It looked great on the outside. Internally, it was a freaking chaotic mess. There's no stability in it. Everything felt like it was falling apart. different parts of my brain are communicating and not listening to each other. There's too much in one area, not enough in another. And it was just reflecting that. And so I've gotten to this point where there's now like equanimity and peace. Right? I brought my business partner on full time. I offloaded all of the things that are not my zone of genius with him, which he loves to do. And I spend way less time, but there's way more stability. And, I can just devote my thoughts and my time to being present and being in the moment, so that I can show up instead of trying to make things happen. And so that's been like the biggest shift for me overall is going from that place of like doing to being. And we can look at like the Garden of Eden too. I don't know if have you gone much in the Bible?
I went to Catholic school my whole life, or not my whole life, but for high school. So I'm
Yeah.
familiar with the majority of the stories, but from like a deep reflective perspective on myself, like, spending the time and journaling and thinking through a lot of these stories, not as much.
Yeah.
But I'm
Yeah.
familiar with them, of course.
Cool. Yeah, because like I'm not religious by any sense, and that's a lot of people get lost in that. I focus on the relationship with God. And so where people get lost is, they pick up the Bible and they start worshiping the book. But it's like, no, the book
Mm.
is the signpost who's pointing you to the one that it's about. That's the whole purpose. And so, people miss that. And it's like, I understand why so many people are like, God, I hate religion. I don't want to associate with this because it's just like law, law, law. And you're constantly going to fail if you live that life, right? But in reality, what it's pointing to is God who came as Jesus, who actually set us free from that to allow us to live in grace, which means you don't have to be perfect. We're just making progress. It's a whole different way of being, and so that's the religious mindset that I was living in too when I actually was going against religion and going away from it. I was ironically ending up in my own religion. It's the religion of perfectionism. And so I was trying to attain like this godhood feeling in myself where I was perfect, but I couldn't do that. Um, and so what happens when you do that is you take yourself out of performance and out of relationship with God. But anyway, taking it back to what I was saying, in the Garden of Eden, if you read in Genesis, like Adam was put in the garden to have a specific purpose that was given to him in advance. Like God told him what to do. Versus if we look at ourselves today, what happens? Society tells us what to do, right? We're brainwashed by hustle culture and all these gurus and all this crap out there where it's like, you have to do this, you have to get rich, you have to do these, you have to live up to these expectations, you have to be a provider, you have to blah, 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 but we're actually disconnected from who God says we are. So we take on the identity society and the world says we are rather than who God says we are. And that's how we end up in this like pushing and forcing mindset where it's like, dude, I have to achieve and attain and it never ends. It's a freaking never ending rat race, dude. It's a rat race you get out of to get into another one. Um,
That is so true, dude. That is very true. And I think like something I've been thinking a ton about recently because I started to feel it within myself as I started to, know, identify more as like a business owner, now in year two. Year one, like you give yourself the grace of like, I'm still new, I'm learning these things. And then year
yeah,
two, you start to be like, all right, I'm in this thing. Um, and this thing that I'm starting to realize within myself is this comparison game of you see all this flexing on social media and all these like gurus just like essentially telling you that like making money is easy and like running a business is easy and that you should be doing 100K a month and that if you're and you start to almost program within yourself like if I'm not hitting XYZ numbers, I'm a piece of shit. I'm bad at business. I'm this, I'm that. When the reality is like things take time to grow
for sure.
and like everyone's on their own schedule and just because you're not doing XYZ doesn't mean like you're bad at business or you're not going to be able to get there. It's like Uber still hasn't turned a profit. Things take time. But it's so easy to fall into just this toxic mindset of like I'm not enough because I'm seeing XYZ on the internet right now.
Yeah, if you're a sprout and you're comparing yourself to a full tree, you're gonna feel inferior. I mean, that's why God talks about fruitfulness so much. You know, it's like there's so many factors of just that little analogy of being a plant that's fruitful. It's like one, the plant will grow naturally if it's in the right environment, right? Like if it has the right soil, which is those underlying beliefs, it's being fed the right nutrients, right? That's what we're feeding our mind, our spirit. If it's being watered, by God, by the word, washing ourselves in that way, removing the blocks, being in the light of the sun, ironically, the sun. Uh,
Hmm.
so there's so many different aspects to that where it's like if you just have the right environment and you put yourself in the right place, you will grow. But if you're staring at the tree next to you, wondering why you're not them, you take away from your own growth in the process. And that's the biggest trap. People say making money is easy. And it's like, okay, it is such a vague freaking thing to say. It's simple, sure, because it's just pretty much the same thing, but at different levels. But the easiness only comes based on your level of mastery, right? So it's like what's easy to someone at 100K is not easy to someone at 10. And what's easy to someone at $10 million is like feels impossible to someone at 100K. So everyone's saying it's easy. It's like, well, it's easy for you right now. Wait till you get to the next
Hmm.
level.
And I think like so much of it goes back to what you're saying was like business is a reflection of you in the sense of all that stuff you were just saying, like healthy things grow.
Yeah.
Like if like what you're saying from a plant perspective of giving it the right water and giving it the right nutrients and giving it the sun and like, healthy things grow in nature
Hmm.
and also within yourself and within your business. Like if
Mm.
you're, consuming the right things from a knowledge perspective and learning and just trying and being organized. And there's just so many, examples when you think through it of understanding just healthy things grow. And if you, take on a healthy approach with things, it's going to work itself out.
Hmm. Yeah, something I'm gonna have to listen to this podcast again because something just came to me is like, we can look at business and just our creations are just an expression of our thoughts and how free we are in our thoughts and our ability to organize and systemize those thoughts. Right. So it's like at each level of business, going from say like 100K to a million, there's a new level of thinking that's required. So like new thoughts have to sprout up inside, but the ability to organize those into systems is what creates the actual business of it. So it's like as we learn to organize our thoughts internally and get clarity on those and systemize from this place of like freedom, like letting these thoughts come up without holding them back and putting them in the right place, it ends up as us just taking action naturally on the business and then the business grows. It's all our thinking. Like business is not even business, has nothing to do with any of that. It's all how we think, every single part of it. And that's why mindset's the most important thing. And it requires us to die to ourselves daily. And the Bible talks about the daily renewing of your mind. If you break down the word renew, it's not refresh, it's renew, right? So new in there means to have something that wasn't there before come up, right? Or replenish something in a better way, right? So we're renewing our mind daily. And so at each new level, that means you have to let go of something that's old, right? And Jesus talks about you can't fit new wine into an old wineskin. Why? Because like an old wineskin, it would break. Because wine, when it ferments, it expands, right? There's like a gas that comes off of it. And so that's what happens is like you have to have a new wineskin for new wine because the old one won't break. And it's like at the end of the day, the Bible is to build a relationship with God, but there's so many freaking, I can't say so many, all success principles come from it because it comes from the one who originated success, which is God. It's like, why not learn how to create from the creator of everything that you can create? And there's so much deep knowledge in there. But yeah, it's like just seeing your mind as literally like the main work that you work on,
Mm.
and then just letting that come out outside of you. It happens naturally. Like every time you have a thinking upgrade, you have a business upgrade. Every time.
It's like that analogy of like you are both the sculpture and the sculptor.
Yes.
Um, and that holds true for, the self in general. And I'm curious what you like the role of risk in all of this and the role of
Mm.
being willing to take risks. 'Cause it's something I've seen from, a business standpoint, and I think a personal standpoint as well, is like you have to be willing to take the jump off the cliff, if you will, to
Mhm.
get where you want to go. And it's a very scary and hard thing to do. And there's a certain risk appetite that you need to have if you want to get to, levels of personal growth and of business growth. And I'm just curious your perspective on risk in general in this whole world.
Yeah, so I think that ties into what you said about the sculpture and the sculptor thing. Because it's like just viewing that from like a conscious standpoint. I mean, that sculpture outside of you is literally just a mirror to what's happening internally. That's it, right? It's showing what's happening in your mind. And as you get more clarity internally, you chisel away more and more so that you get more clarity. And so the risk factor comes into that where and it's hard because people are like, hey, I'm a huge risk taker. It's like, okay, wait till you get to the next level, bruh, because you're gonna have a way bigger risk to take. It's gonna be
Hmm.
way bigger. And so we have a tendency as people, one, to get comfortable, right? We get stuck in a level of comfort. And then two, you can see that statue that you've been creating, that you've been sculpting, and you can start to worship how beautiful it is. And that's the tendency that we have in our lives, right? Like you start with this rock and you chisel out a David and you're like, God, this David's so beautiful. But then you're being called to go to the next level and chisel away at that. And you're like, no, I don't want to chisel this away. This is art. Like I don't want to break off the nose. Like, what if I mess up? What if I can't go back? Blah, blah, blah. And it's like the risk is that it's being able to see what the new statue is under what that beautiful one is right there and still being able to chisel it because you can see what is unseen more clearly than you can see what is right in front of your face. And that is
Mm.
literally that's the definition of faith. So your faith has to outweigh your fear, and that's the only way that you will take the risk. That's a freaking bar.
That is a bar. And I guess my response to that would be like, what happens then when let's say you have that, David, and you're feeling called to, keep going and make it even a better statue. And then you mess up.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh shit, I took this thing that was great, and now it doesn't have a nose. Like
Yeah.
you broke it in a way. And obviously, there's a lot of self-talk and negative stuff that comes up, and fear and anxiety when you embark on that. And when you feel like, okay, I had this down, and now I just messed this up.
Yeah.
And, ooh, you know?
Yeah, so that's the those are the moments where we can equate it to like I just messed up this so bad in my life. And that's also when we have to reflect like what inside of me led to me overdoing this chip? Like did I get too aggressive? Right? Was I not being aware and present of myself? Did I overcompensate? Did I strive too much? Was I actually being in like a loving place? Or was just this some freak accident? Who knows? But it's being able to separate yourself from that thing outside of you so that if a nose does fall off, your heart doesn't rip in half, right? Like you need to be able to feel that. But at the end of the day, if you're seeing the nose come off, it means, oh, you actually made an idol. And this is literally what the Bible's talking about. Like they made a golden frickin' calf when Moses goes up to the top of the mountain in the Old Testament. And it's like they're worshiping their own creation. And that's literally idolatry. It's like you're taking your eyes off of, you know what? I may have broken the nose off of this, but I still have God.
Hmm.
And that's where we mess up because we get so caught up in, I have this thing, I have this thing. And God all the time, he's like, let go of this because I have three of these things for you. And you're like, no, I want it. Like, I want this because this is mine and it's so good. And he's like, let go of it. I'm gonna have to separate you from it. And we
Hmm.
want to hold it tighter and tighter and tighter. And it's not to punish us, it's because he knows that if we focus on this so much, we're gonna lose sight of him and we're gonna lose ourselves in the process. And it's a love that we don't want to encounter. But through that idolatry, we literally lose touch with our true identity in the
Hmm.
process. And so he has to rip away sometimes the things that keep us from seeing him clearly. And those mistakes that we make, it's just another opportunity to see who we are and, still worship. Like, and worship's just being grateful at the end of the day. Like having a heart of like, man, dude, I'm grateful I get to learn something. And what's funny is we can look at those old statues. I've seen plenty with the nose chopped off of them. I've seen
Hmm.
ears chopped off. I've seen ears. They got tiny wieners. It's like they got all types of stuff going on, bro. They're not perfect, but we look at them with perfection because it's humanity.
And I think like, have you ever listened to this guy, Brute the Force? He goes by Brute the Force on Twitter.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think, something that he gets right. And so for those that don't know, he's this guy who is I guess you would call him like a professional gambler. Um, he's like a professional gambler, and he also has this very like philosophical, like Zen Buddhism element to himself. And I think the wisdom in the gambler is the detachment.
Yes, that's
And so many of these people have like their superpower is a detachment to material items.
hmm
And there's a beauty in that. Obviously, for most people, they look at it and think it's crazy and stupid. And in many ways, it is. But there is still just this beauty in being willing to just throw it all in the fire.
dude, and that's the only way to get to the next level. I literally just I read a Hormozy quote. It was one of his takeaways from that launch. That was crazy. Like,
Incredible.
dude, I've never been like a cult fan, but I was like, I so much respect for that because that's just like a feat where it's like the ability to think that long term. How can you not respect that? That was freaking phenomenal. Um,
Incredible.
yeah, but one of the takeaways from that was, God, it was like, ah. I don't want to misquote it, but it was basically about like, risk is betting on yourself is being able to put an uncomfortable amount of money into something where you don't know if it's going to get a return unless you show up for it. Right? So it's like that's literally betting on yourself. Like you're saying,
Hmm.
I can win this. And so I'm going through that too right now. It's like I'm at a point in the business where I felt a lot of frustration from just like that stability point, which we all go through, which is great. Like stability is awesome, but we're also called to grow. And because we're called to grow, that means we have to let go of something. And so, my current team, I've had to do a lot of switch ups, rearrangements, letting people go away just because they're not going to serve that next level at the same capacity. Not that they didn't do a bad job. It's like they were great for where we're at. But, with that also means I have to get uncomfortable and put myself into the position of like, oh, am I gonna have the right person here? Like, is this
Hmm.
is this where I need to move this thing to? Like, is this the next step? Is this the next step? And so, by rearranging, I'm just taking a bet on like, I don't know if this is gonna work, but it's I can feel that pull of this is the way forward, right? And I hesitated on it for so long, probably like 6 months with some people because of these key positions of like God, I don't want to let this go. We're getting good. We're getting good results, but we're called to great. Like we're called to
Mm.
greatness. I can't get there if I'm still clinging to good. It's impossible. And so it's like I have to let go of that good so that I can get to great. And through that, you get exposed internally a lot. And it's just like that process alone, it's it's so hard. It's hard. Like I'm encountering it too, like with my book. I just put a fat investment into this whole launch of this thing. It's gonna be awesome. Like, it'll be in New York. You're gonna have Billboard, all the articles, like everything to publish it. But I'm taking this bet on
Let's
the
go.
fact that there's this message inside of me that is the truth. And when we do that, this is what I love so much about God, bro, is like when we act and move in faith, he confirms in so many little ways. Like I've watched so many podcasts in the past week where it's like they'll be saying something that I literally just got done editing saying in my book chapter. That it's like so niche and specific where it's like, dude, I am on the right freaking path. And so it's like he loves when we move in faith because he's like, you trust me more than what you see, more than what you're losing, right? And that's what Abraham did with Isaac on the mountain, right? So when he goes to Mount Sinai, God's like, hey, I want you to sacrifice your son. And he's like, okay, I'll do it. And so he's about to freaking kill his son, and God says, stop. And so not only did he give him his son back, his one son that he waited his entire life for God to give him the ability to have a kid, but his son was able to live, and then an entire freaking nation came from him. So God multiplied what we were willing to give up. The sacrifice was in the thing that we wanted to lose the least, right? And that's the human tendency is like, I don't want to lose this thing. But by being able to let go of this thing, we allow it to sprout into so much more. It's the same in relationship. A lot of guys, and I've struggled with this one, bro. Like relationships with women were never my strong point. I just didn't have like a model of how to purely love from like a God love place. And so that there's been a lot of lessons in there, but with my girl, like there was a point I was clinging so tight to certain parts of her. She's like a butterfly, right? If we have this butterfly in our hands and it's beautiful, we want it to stay there as long as possible. But what happens when we try and force it to stay there? We crush its wings, right? And so being able to have your hand open so that the butterfly can fly away is the only way it can have the free will to come back, right? And so our only job is to be a place where nectar is coming up from outside of us that butterfly would
Hmm.
want to land on in the first place. Like we have to be a place that it is refreshed. And that's our job as men too. With women is like, are you being a place of refreshment and a source for them to come and get life? Are you just trying to keep them stuck there? You trap them and you crush them in your hands and they can't fly away. Like they lose the beauty that we look at them for in the first place when we do that. And women, dude, women are the metaphor for how we interact with life. Like everything we do is how we interact with women or the lack of interacting with women. Everything. It's the perfect mirror. So that area of my life has been the biggest teacher by far, bro, but it's the most rewarding and it helps you see God so much more clearly in who you really are.
I think the butterfly analogy is so perfect there. But I want to go deeper into that because I think it's so fascinating. I think it's so true. Even from thinking of nature and the world as a feminine spirit, um, there's a lot of truth to what you're saying. And like maybe just from the way we interact with with women as a reflection of ourselves and
Mhm.
the way we reflect and the way the world reflects back at us also mirrors a lot of the energy from how women interact, if that makes sense to you.
Yeah, like look at nature, dude. It's constantly moving and constantly changing. And we're kind of like this, we're like a captain that's taking a ship through the sea, right? The most skilled sailor is willing to go through the roughest freaking waters. And those waters are like the emotional tide of the woman, untamed, like able to just ebb and flow. And it's like you can go through some like hurricane type storms. You can have some water spouts flying at your boat. But like if you can stay grounded as the captain of your ship, then you can get it through those waters and you eventually get to the point where the sky opens up it's sunny, it's peaceful, and you can just see into the horizon with so much clarity and there's so much beauty. But like the thing ironically you think about the most is like, wow, that was actually really cool that I just made it through that freaking storm. And it reaffirms the fact that, hey, I was able to stay grounded. And it's the same with that butterfly analogy again. It's like if we're doing this like all the time with like women like doing the most, it's like they're like, what is this guy freaking doing like the cat daddy over here? It's like that's not attractive to me. And it's like just being in your own presence rather than performance, again, is what allows you to become a magnet that can hold space for those emotions because that's what women want. When they say safety, it's not just like, oh, he can protect me from a gun. It's like, no, I can feel who I am around him and he doesn't flinch. In fact, he appreciates it, but he's also not trying to change it. Right. And so I've had to learn how to like not be a fixer and all that
Hmm.
stuff. Like there's that
Hmm.
tendency to want to fix
Oh
emotions.
yeah.
Yeah, especially as dude, as an entrepreneur,
Yeah,
like you
I
have
can
a
relate.
tendency. Yeah. You have the tendency to want to like fix emotions and put structure around it. Like we want to have structure, but you don't want to like keep it from doing what it needs to do. It's like its containment is where freedom exists. Right. So we need to contain it from a place of love and just witness it. Like let the beauty be in that area. Um and yeah, just be there, like be stable in yourself. And so our creations are the same way. And it's like when you have those crazy months where everything's flying up or like maybe everything's just tanking down. Can you sit there and be like, well, like this is awesome or like this sucks, but also not having the emotional attachment to it. Also
Hmm.
being like, but at the end of the day, God, I got God. Like that's falling over, whatever. Like I got this taking off. I got God. Like I'm completely detached from the applause or the booze. I can
Hmm.
be myself fully. And in that place is where our true wisdom and power comes out, bro. That's how it emerges to the surface. And it's the only way. If we're moving around all the time, how do we allow ourselves to go rooted into the ground? You can't. You
Hmm.
have to you have to be present and just hold stability through the storm and just trust him. That's what dude Jesus like in the same analogy. The disciples are on the boat in the storm and they're in the Sea of Galilee and they're all freaking out, right? When the storm comes and the waves are going crazy. And Jesus is taking a nap in the back of the boat and
Hmm.
he freaking wakes up and he rebukes the wind and the waves settle down. He says, "Where's your faith? Where's your faith?" And it's like we can look at that as the wind. What that represents is these false thoughts and doctrines and beliefs in our head. It's the wind that's coming through our ears, right?
Hmm.
And what happens is when he rebukes the wind, the seas die down. What are the seas? The emotions. So he says, "Get these thoughts out of here," and then the seas die down. He's like, "Where's your faith?" Because they weren't focusing on him. They were not focusing on the fact that God was with them. They were more focused on the waters and the wind. And if we don't focus on God, we'll get caught up in that too.
I mean, dude, there's so much good stuff we could touch on there, but I think, what stands out the most for me from what you just said is like when you be just being yourself fully. And I think every guy's had this experience where there's a girl that they don't really like that much.
Hmm.
And because they don't really like her that much, they're themselves.
Yeah.
And they're so like they have the most charisma they've ever had with a girl
Yeah.
because they're able to be themselves fully because they don't feel that pressure of performance of being someone they're not.
Yes.
And I think it's something we all deal with. And one of the most interesting realizations that the podcast taught me, and it's so applicable in the realm of relationships and so many things. It's just this idea that like styles make fights. And the closest I ever came to quitting the podcast was I was in Europe with three of my closest friends, and I listened to a podcast with Rick Rubin, and I think the host was Jay Shetty actually, and I was like, shit, I don't think I'm ever going to be at a level where I could have that conversation. Like, that is a
Mm.
conversation that I think is above my pay grade. completely.
Mhm.
Um, and my friends just kind of laughed at me and kind of brought me back to reality. But what in hindsight I realized after having so many conversations now at this point of 200, that was probably at like 50 or 40 when I had that thought, was that although Jay Shetty could probably have a better conversation with Rick Rubin than I ever could, there's a lot of individuals that I feel like Jay Shetty couldn't have as good of a conversation as I could.
Mhm.
From the standpoint of just the fact that styles make fights, and like you and me, for example, in this conversation, I feel there's a certain back and forth and energy that few people are able to replicate. And it's like your own zone of genius, if you will, finding those right people where that conversation is just so natural. And it's the same thing in relationships with girls and having a comfort that when you can be yourself fully, you don't need to be performative because, it's totally okay if you go on a date with a girl and it's awkward and there's no romance or energy or whatever it is there because it's a style thing. And
Yeah.
people are different, and like even for someone like myself who's done over 200 of these conversations, and I've learned so much about keeping conversations going and like having good banter and like all of these little hacks, if you will, to try to make a conversation fun. Like you could still go on dates and it's awkward and you don't know like
Yeah.
so much of it comes down to a right pair of individuals.
Mm.
And it's very easy to get lost in trying to perform for that other person when all of the good stuff is going to come from being comfortable with being yourself fully.
Mm. That's so good, bro. And the biggest paradigm shift in all of that is having the realization of even if we don't connect, I can still connect to myself fully.
Hmm.
It's hey, if even if we don't like each other, I can still be myself. Like there's nothing in them that determines I can't do that. And ironically, like what you're saying about Jay Shetty, I don't believe that's true at all. Like I think you could easily have an amazing conversation. It wouldn't be better or worse. It would just be yours, right? So
Totally.
it's like
That's the
I
thing.
feel like you would connect with him because at the end of the day, connecting with other people comes down to how we connect with ourselves, right? So it's like if there's a block there, what that tells me is there's an underlying belief of maybe I'm not good enough to have this conversation. Maybe I'm unworthy to have this conversation.
Hmm.
Maybe I've tried in the past and there was so much pressure and I feel like I'm going on stage and I'm locking up. And that goes into like this thing with the women. You see a woman you're not attracted to versus one you are, and it's like all we do in those moments is we don't continue to feed that I'm not good enough for this or I'm frozen. It's what is this telling me about myself right now? And how do I express that from a place of honesty and just complete transparency? And that's what Rick Rubin does, bro. That's
Yeah.
literally it. That's all he does. And so like being able to show up from that place and take inventory of yourself and be like, this is what I'm experiencing right now. How do you relate with that? Like that's the deepest level of connection because it's like I can see those blocks in you and that belief where it's like no, I don't believe that. Like I can see what's underneath the surface or you wouldn't be doing this in the first place. Like there's just it doesn't even make sense. Like you wouldn't continue to show up if you didn't see that in yourself and you knew it was true, right? So, even with women too, it's like people are scared overall just to feel like fools. I have a freaking talent show I'm performing in at the end of September, bro. I like want to piss my pants, but I'm still doing it. I'm still doing it. It's like I'm singing for like 500 people, bro. And I'm
That is
like,
crazy.
I'm
Dude, you
horrible.
kind of have a good voice. You have a good voice though. I saw you post on your story the other day a little karaoke and I was like, damn, Mason kind of has some bars, dude.
I appreciate it, bro. I got singing lessons this afternoon, but dude, it's like it's so exposing at the end of the day. That's why I started TikTok in the first place. Because like in college, I was trying to give a presentation. I don't even freaking remember. I was sweat so much, and I was like, dude, I got to go take a theater class or something. So I did, and it was so exposing, bro. Like we did improv, and I was completely dissociated. I did good, but I was like, I just don't feel present. And then COVID happened, right? So it became a voiceover class where I was fire, and I realized, yo, I'm not scared of any of this. I'm just scared of being seen because my voice is
Hmm.
fine. Is when people see me. And so the next stage was TikTok, right? And that did well, right? Like the things we're scared of, we lean into, and that's where we'll find success. After that, it was like, oh, I've done really good at like social media. I need to take it into real life. And that's when the retreats happened. My first retreat, I tried to structure the whole thing. I get to frickin' El Salvador, and of course there's a monsoon, so our entire itinerary is wrecked, bro, and it became a freestyle type thing, and it was way better than it would have been. And then it's like the second time I did a retreat, completely just freestyled the whole thing, dude. Like we said, like no itinerary, basically floated around, and the transformation was so deep. And that's just from like tapping more into presence. You know, women too, it's like guys don't want to look at an attractive woman and go up to her and be like, God, you make me just feel so unworthy, and just holding that tension. Because
Mm.
they're like, I would, they're like, I would just lose her. I'm like, well, you never had her in the first place, but you're losing yourself by not saying the truth. You know, it's like, man, you just make me like question why I'm everything, and I really appreciate it. It's like no one's heard that. No one's heard
Hmm.
that. And it's like that's the most honest, genuine thing you can say. You know, and so like I look at my girl and I'm just like, God, I just don't understand like who you are. Like you've made me look at myself so much. It's just like, God, this is such a beautiful gift. You know, and that's all it is. It's like the ability to look in front of you and appreciate the mirror, no matter how intimidating or whatever it is. It's like it makes you face yourself. Like, that's all we're here to do. It's to face ourselves, turn and face the freaking music, and realize that God is with us the entire time, bro. It's like that's it.
Just being willing to be a fool and look like a fool. And I mean, most of the time you end up not looking like a fool. That's the
Yeah,
reality of it. It's all in your head that you think you're going to be a fool. And, um, but being willing to actually be a fool and actually look like a fool, it's
yeah,
such an uncomfortable tension within us, but so much good is on the other side of it.
for
Like
sure, bro.
literally everything, anything worth doing in life is going to require you to be a fool
For
at
sure,
one point. There's there's no avoiding it. You have to show up as a fool multiple times if you want to get to the place you want to go.
for sure, dude. Yeah, I mean,
It's as simple as
you
that.
have to face everything that you do not want to see in yourself and just own it. And at the end of the day, it's like taking the story away from that feeling. You know, so it's like it's so easy to extremify that story of like I feel this way, so therefore I'm a bad person. You know what that is? That's called shame. That's what shame
Mm.
is. Right? Because there's shame, which is attached to identity, guilt is attached to an action. Right? So it's like you can go up to someone and feel a negative emotion, and shame takes it on as I'm bad because I feel this way. But the truth is, I feel this way. It has nothing to do with my innate worthiness or goodness. It's more so about I believe something about myself that is getting shaken up right now. Like I feel exposed. And it's like you're showing me something about myself that it's like, wow, I needed you to be in this exact thing in my life, business, woman, whatever, for me to see that. And that's the only way that I can grow and develop. And like that's just such a place of that's love. That's love. At the end of the day, it's like this is me. Like who else do you want to see in front of you? A projection?
Hmm. I mean, bro, it's so real, and it's like owning the fact too, when you're able to own that for yourself, you're able to show up as a way. I want to just say better person, but I know that's not precise enough of a term. But
Mhm.
when you are being starting to own yourself as an individual, you start to let other people own themselves as an individual.
Yeah,
And that is a very beautiful place
yeah,
where people are a little bit uncomfortable being themselves, but they feel an openness to start to be able to be that person in front of you or start to express, some of the more weird interests that or things that they like. Um, I just think of examples within my life of people when I start the podcast and I, have a little bit of fear and anxiety and I do this thing, blah, blah, blah. And then you have people reach out to you and talk about like how, they really want to do something like this and blah, blah, blah. And, by you being yourself, you give them permission to start being themselves.
For sure, dude. And we put so many just limits on ourselves. Like I've had people too, like, how do you start a podcast, Mike? You pull out a voice recorder on your phone, you speak into it for 10 minutes, and you upload it. It's like, there you go. You just kind of get it rolling, dude. And yeah, being willing to, it's like no longer seeking approval. Like just no longer seeking approval. And what happens is you start to then attract the people who look for your approval to allow themselves to give themselves the ability to not seek approval too. You
Hmm.
know, so it's like you're just like reflecting that at the end of the day. You're like, no, you don't need me to do this. You just do it for you, and that's all we have to get over is like, I don't need your approval to be myself because God already agreed with me that I can. It's like you're not God.
There is so much wisdom there and just so much in the fact that like a lot of times that we think we're getting better at something, it's more of the fact that like we're just getting more comfortable in that thing,
Mm,
and it's not even like this tangible thing that you improved upon. It's more of just a comfort in that moment. Because
facts.
as we're talking, I'm thinking about, episode 1 of the podcast. And, so much of my improvement over 200 episodes is solely the fact that I'm just comfortable to be myself now. Whereas it takes you a while by nature to get to that standpoint. But
Yeah.
it's not like I, found some secrets of how to communicate on all these things. It's like you just learn to have a comfort in the moment. And I think so often getting comfortable is the biggest hurdle to doing certain things.
It's the familiarity is what allows comfort to happen. So it's like the more familiar you get with it, the more comfortable. But that's why you want to stay uncomfortable, bro. Like that means if you're
Yeah, sir.
comfortable all the time, you're staying in too familiar a territory. You got to venture out.
Mm-hmm. Hell yeah. Well, brother, we sadly were running out of time here, but I think like we definitely, I mean, incredible conversation. I had all these notes of things I want to talk about, and we did not even hit one of them. And I think that that's always the sign of the best conversations.
Yeah.
Um, but to leave people with something actionable, would you say it's essentially just get a little bit more uncomfortable, be willing to be a fool? What do you think the one someone was to be like, all right, there's one thing I'm gonna take away from this episode. What do you think that would be?
Hmm. I'd say take self-inventory of what's the butterfly in your life. Like what's that butterfly in your life that you're crushing because you're scared to receive something better. And so we have to look at that to allow ourselves to actually feel freedom in the first place. Because that is the key to your next level of evolution. Yeah, get uncomfortable. Yeah, do the things that scare you, but it's like, what's the butterfly? Because that thing you're holding on to is the thing that's holding you back from the real beauty of life.
And how do you think we find that thing? How can we, is there any wisdom you have for figuring out what that thing is?
See, the beauty of it is we already know. It's just whether we want to accept that.
Hmm.
So it's that first thing that popped up as soon as I said the butterfly to whoever's listening to this. Like it's you know what it is. We just don't want to admit what it is.
Do you think they show off it often comes with things that we have limiting beliefs behind?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Because behind that is the unknown.
Yep.
And like this is the most beautiful thing I've known. But you have to finish that sentence, which this is the most beautiful thing I've known up to this point. It's that story. The story is what defines your entire reality.
That is some beautiful wisdom for us to lead the audience with, brother. Always such a pleasure speaking with you. Um, few people that I feel the tennis or the ping pong ability with in conversation, where it's just like so easily flows and it makes for such a great conversation. So grateful for you taking the time. I know we had a bunch of hiccups making this one happen, but
So good.
we
It
made
was
it
for a
happen, bro.
purpose. It was
It
for
was
a
for a
purpose,
purpose.
bro. The resistance was trying to keep us from having the conversation. So,
We got it done, bro. Well, appreciate you, dude. Keep killing it. Keep just keep just identifying the butterflies and feeling like a fool, bro. I'm excited to hear about the talent show. Keep doing weird shit like that. That's the
let's
path to greatness right there.
go. The side quest is the main quest, bro.